And oh my god, this is going so. Oh my god. I just got up. I just came out of bed, but this went so fast. 200,000 subscribers. Oh my god. I need to get a shower. So, hello guys and welcome to a new video. Thank you guys so much for reaching 200,000 subscribers on this channel. It's absolutely overwhelming. I just came back to Munich from Mallorca and actually this one just arrived in the mail a couple of days ago. Yeah, I just got the YouTube award for 100,000 subscribers and now we're already at 200,000. This is going way faster than I ever imagined. Thanks to everybody who recently joined, and if you don't know what kind of videos I create videos about both personal development, filmmaking and also photography. And today it's actually time for a Photoshop tutorial. So this is the photo that we're going to edit today. I think it turned out really cool. It's my friend Gabriel and we took this photo in Munich. I love this photo. I think it's an overall great composition, great colors. And yeah, today I'm going to walk you through my workflow within Photoshop on how to make this photo look perfect in 4 different steps. So when it comes to my overall photo editing workflow, I actually separate it into 2 different parts. I use both Lightroom and Photoshop for almost any photo that I edit. I think both of the programs have their specific strengths. So I do all of the color, brightness and contrast adjustments within Lightroom, and then I do other things like photo manipulation, retouching, or adding additional elements within Photoshop. I've actually already created a full video on my Lightroom editing workflow, so if you want to know how I tweak all of my colors and contrast and all that kind of stuff, then definitely make sure to watch my other video here. Also makes sense to probably watch this one before this one. So this is what the photo looked like as a raw file, really flat, not really special, but if we just throw on one of my signature presets, then the photo looks like this. Little plug here. If you want to check out my signature presets, you can find a link to them in the description. But today we're actually not going to focus on all of these different adjustments, but we're going to focus on retouching, manipulation, adding different things in order to make your photo look perfect. So we're going to take it from this after Lightroom to this final photo, which I think just looks amazing. But yeah, without further ado, let's just hop into the laptop and talk about editing. Alright, so the first thing I do all of the time is I just press Command J in order to duplicate my background, because one thing which is different between Lightroom and Photoshop is that in Lightroom you can always undo a specific setting, but in Photoshop most of your editing changes are permanent, so you can't always go back to how things were. So yeah, I always just duplicate it in order to have a backup I can always go back to, and also in order to compare it with all of the changes I made. So step number 1 is to clean up the image. As you see here in the photo, we have a couple of things distracting the viewer from the subject itself. Obviously, I want to have the focus on Gabriel and also a bit on the architecture in the background, but there are a couple of things that I just don't need in this photo. Like for example, these lanterns up here. Also, there's a car in the background, a person standing here. Here are some barricades in the back that just don't really look visually appealing. So I want to remove those objects in order to just focus the viewers completely on my subject and not distract them from it. So there are actually a lot of different ways on how you can remove things from your photos, but the main tools that I use are both the spot healing brush tool and the clone stamp tool. So we're just going to click here on the spot healing brush tool, and in order to change the size and the hardness of your brush, you can just hold Control and Option on a Mac, and then you can drag to the right and to the left and you will change the size of your brush, and you can also drag up and down in order to change the hardness. So as soon as you selected the right brush size, then you can just go to the first object you want to remove. For me it would be that lantern up here. I think it just doesn't add anything to the photo, so I just drag over this part of the image, release it, and then this part will just be replaced with content aware fill. It's what it's called. Basically this tool just analyzes all of the pixels around your brush, and then it just creates what this could look like without the object. So yeah, really helpful. Also down here, for example, with that person, I just drag over it and boom, like that, it is removed. So yeah, this is a really quick way to remove things, but sometimes it can also happen that you just want to remove something like that lantern up here. and then it just does some weird things. It looks kind of okay if you just zoom out, but if you zoom in, then you have some pixelation errors, or it just doesn't look as natural. So for these circumstances, I would just choose the clone stamp tool instead. If you press only Option, then you can select the part of the image that you want to copy and paste. So for me, that would be the part of the sky up here. I would just click here, and now this part is selected, and now I can just copy and paste it towards the other part of the image. So I'm gonna make the brush a bit softer for here in order to merge it better with the background, and then you can just drag and hold and you will copy that other part of the image. You basically just clone it. That's why it's called clone stamp. And then just like that, you have that object removed. So when it comes to removing that car here in the background, it gets a little bit more complicated, because obviously I want to remove the car, but I don't want to remove Gabriel's arm. So yeah, what I would usually do here is I would just go to the pen tool, and then I would just draw a mask around the arm. So if you just click, then you can make new points, and if you just click and hold, then you can drag and you can adjust the curvature of that mask. So I'm just going to drag it all around here, and as soon as we have that mask, then we're just going to right click and click on make selection. For the feather radius, we're just going to keep 0 pixels so that it is as sharp as possible. Hit OK, and now we just have that selection. And the cool thing about selections is that everything you do now is just going to take place in that specific part of the image. So if I would, for example, choose the brush tool and I just brush in here, then you see only the selection is going to be adjusted. So what we can do now is we can just go back to the clone stamp tool, select it back here, and then we're just going to select the part that we want to copy and paste. So for me, that would be down here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste that specific part of the image. And as you see, you are only going to copy and paste within that selection. And if I just press Command D, I don't have the selection anymore, and now you see we just have the sharp edge of the arm, but still the car is going to be removed in the background. So for most cases, the spot healing brush tool and the clone stamp tool will be enough to clean up your image, but for some specific parts, you have to get a little bit creative and combine them a little bit. So for example, if we look at that barricade on the right of the image, obviously it doesn't really look that visually appealing. So in order to remove that, what I would do is I just select the lasso tool on the left side here, and then I'm just going to drag and drop a selection back here, just release it, and then you have another selection. And now what I can do is just click on the layer here, press Command J, which duplicates that selection, and now, as you can see, I just have that specific part of the image, which I can now take and put on top of the other parts. So I'm just going to hit Command T in order to transform that layer, right click, flip horizontal, and then I'm just going to put it where exactly it needs to be. So it would be something like this. And then I'm just going to hit enter. And as you see, it already looks pretty damn clean. So obviously that part of the image doesn't look perfect yet because that letter looks a little bit weird, but we can also fix that by just clicking down here on that mask icon. And now we have a mask added to our layer. And how masks work in Photoshop is that all of the white parts are going to be visible and all of the black parts are going to be invisible, / you're going to see whatever is underneath it, which is the old image. And that way we can just go to the brush tool, select a black color, and then we can just paint over that mask here in order to reveal parts of the old image. Obviously, you have to make some small adjustments, and also you have to use a couple of those tools combined in order to replace something as big as that part of the image. So I'm just going to go back on the layer, select the clone stamp tool, and copy another part of the image. So yeah, I think I got that fixed pretty well, and if we just look at the before and after, we can see that we already made some drastic changes here. And yeah, now we're just going to go to step number 2. Alright, so now we're just going to take care of all the different shapes in order to make those look perfect. So what we're going to do is just select the layer and click on filter and then liquify. And in liquify, it's going to open up another panel, and you have different tools with which you can warp your image. So the first one would be the forward warp tool, and with this one, if you just drag and hold, then you can just warp specific parts of your image, as you see here. So I'm just going to undo that. Overall, I already really like the composition and it looks almost perfect. But yeah, one thing which catches my eye already is that his shoulders don't have the same height. So what I can do is I can just slowly drag and hold up here. And as you can see, I can adjust the height of his shoulder. Obviously, you have to watch out that you don't warp any parts of the architecture in the background, because if I do that, then it will just look unnatural and I will be exposed as it is photoshopped. Tweak all of those small little shapes, also the chest a bit higher here. And I think that those things really add to the overall image. Then next up, I would also make some minor tweaks at this street line here to just make it completely straight, just like that. Also back here a little bit to just even it out. And then another thing where you can do a lot of stuff is the face in Liquify. So as I said, we have the forward warp tool. There are also other tools, like for example the bloat tool, where you can just blow up specific things. So if I would just blow that up here, then Gabriel looks a lot better. Bruh. You have different tools of how you can just warp your image. You have the blow tool, you also have a pucker tool where you can just shrink specific parts of the image. Damn, this is way too much fun. But yeah, another thing that is really, really powerful in Liquify though is face-aware Liquify. So basically Photoshop just automatically detects a face within a photo and gives you the option to adjust anything. So I can just come here to the panel on the right. I can adjust, for example, the eye distance. I can adjust if he should smile or if he should be sad. The mouth width, basically any attribute within his face. Forehead, the jawline, the face width. So yeah, there are just infinite options to just tweak a face to however you want it to look. So I'm not going to make a lot of adjustments here or else Gabriel is going to hate me. So I just keep it like that. And if we zoom out now, then you just hit OK. It applies those changes and then we're just going to hop over to the next step. So in my opinion, step number 3 is the most powerful one, and I use this on almost any photo that I edit in detail, and that is adding a sun flare. So basically what I just do is go into my library of different assets. So I have a ton of different assets, sound effects, video overlays. I have so much stuff. This is like 200 gigabytes. And I just go into my image, elements, flares, and there I have a couple of different flare packs. With those, I'm just going to look through which flare could fit well. One of my favorites is definitely this one. So I would just pick it, drag and drop it into Photoshop. And now it just opens up in Photoshop. So what we're going to do here is click enter. And then I'm just going to switch the layer mode from normal to screen. So it basically just eliminates the black background. And then I'm just going to move back to the move tool. And then I can just place the flare at a specific point. So obviously you have to have some understandings of photography of how specific light flares work, because obviously it wouldn't make sense to place a flare up here because the sun could never be there. But as you see here, at the light hitting the architecture, you know that the sun is coming from back here. Also, this is the most bright part. So it definitely gives a good option to add a flare here. So I can just drag and drop it in here. Also press Command T again and drag it in order to make it bigger. Maybe something like that. Hit enter. And as you see, that already adds another layer to your image. But as we see now with that flare, if I just toggle it off and on, you see that it also affects our subject as well, which you don't always want to have. Sometimes you want to have it, but in this case I actually want to isolate my subject from that flare layer in order to just give it some more contrast and in order to separate the background and the foreground. So in order to do that, I'm just going to deactivate the flare layer, select my other layer, and then I'm going to go to the quick selection tool on the left up here. And what that tool basically does is that it also automatically detects the edges of your subject. So if I just click here on his jacket, you're going to see that it already sees where the edges are. Sometimes it doesn't work right away, so you can just click Option and then you will see a small minus appearing in your brush, and then you can just deselect specific parts. And in that way I found it a lot easier than using the pen tool, because I can just very quickly select my subject. So I'm just going to click around here and now I have a pretty good selection. So now I'm just going to hit Command Shift and I, which inverts the selection. Then I'm going to activate my flare layer again. click on the layer, and now I'm just going to press on the mask tool, and now, boom, you see that the part of Gabriel is not going to be affected by that flare, which I think is really cool, because if we just toggle it on and off again, you see that it just gives a little bit of haze in the background and separates Gabriel a little bit more from the background. So as we now have a mask attached to that layer, now if we would transform the flare, obviously the mask would move with it as well. But in order to change that, you can just click on this small icon here, which unlinks the mask from the layer itself, and now you can just transform your flare wherever you want it to be without changing the mask. Obviously, you can also just add multiple flares and just play around a little bit in order to make it work perfectly, but I think that flares always look great and they give your image that extra pop. It just pops. It just pops. I always said pop in my Lightroom tutorial. If you're wondering where you can get those kind of flares from, I have a couple of different packs from Lens Distortions. I really like those. Obviously you have to pay for these kind of assets. You can also create some of them by yourself, so I'm sure there are some tutorials out there, but I think that those flares look really cool as they are very detailed and just adds a lot of reality to your shot. So the last tip is called Dodge and Burn, and Dodge and Burn basically helps you to even out all of the brightness levels of your image in order to also make it as smooth as possible and to just pull all of the focus towards your subject. Go down to the new layer file, then you're going to hit Option or Alt on a PC, then you're going to create a new layer, and that brings up a small box. We're just going to call it Dodge and Burn, and then as the layer mode we're going to select Soft Light, and then you check this little box with Fill with Soft Light Neutral Color 50% gray. Then you're going to click OK, and what that does is it creates a layer with a 50% gray. So in soft light, that layer won't be visible, but just the changes that you do on this middle gray layer. And now we're just going to select the Burn tool on the left side here. If we just click and hold it, then we see Burn tool and Dodge tool, and basically they are the opposites. Burn is going to make the parts darker, and Dodge is going to make those parts brighter. So we just select Burn tool, and up here we have some settings that we can adjust. We're just going to select midtones for the range, and we're going to select around 30% for the exposure. If we increase that number, the effect is going to be stronger, but I think 30% is always a good number to go. And what we can do now is we can just paint over the image, and as you see, those parts will get darker. And with that, we're now just going to even out all of the brightnesses. I always like to have a dark drop off at the bottom and at the top of my image, so I'm just going to paint around here, also at the top, to make that sky look even more dramatic. And if you realize that you want to increase the brightness of a specific part of your image, you can go back and select the Dodge tool, and what this does is that it just makes that part brighter, as you see here. You can also always switch in between the Burn and Dodge tool by just holding Option. So if I'm now in the Burn tool and I hit Option, I will have the Dodge tool, and also the other way around. When it comes to Gabriel's face, you can also see that there are some dark parts on his face. I can also just hold Option, then I am in the Dodge tool again, make this part a little bit brighter. Same goes for here, this part a little bit darker. And you see that you can just even out all of those different brightness levels throughout your image, and that makes a really, really big difference. So if we now toggle that Dodge and Burn layer, you can see that we made some really big changes. I think it just overall looks a lot better. And also if we just isolate that layer by hitting Option and clicking on that small eye icon, you see that these are all of the things that we painted on this middle gray layer, which now are going to be visible as brightness adjustments on the layers beneath it. So after all of these different adjustments that we made throughout this video, I think our photo looks 100 times better. If we just look at the before and after, you can see this is what the photo looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. And there's no doubt that this photo looks a lot cleaner, a lot better overall. Yeah, I think that all of these small adjustments, which kind of seem insignificant while doing them, just really add up in the end, and those are the things which make a photo look perfect. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed watching this Photoshop workflow. It really works out for me. I'm using this all the time. And yeah, now it's actually time to talk about the sponsor of this video, which is QNAP. So QNAP is one of the most renowned companies when it comes to network attached storage, or short NAS servers. So what is a NAS server and why would you need one? So if you're a filmmaker or any other sort of creative who works with big file sizes, chances are really high that at some point you will run out of storage on your computer. And the most common thing to do is to buy external hard drives on which you can back up all of your projects. As you can see, I myself did that for the last 6 years, and while they might be quite affordable when starting out, they have a lot of different downsides. With read speeds of around 130 megabytes per second, they are really slow and make 4K video editing impossible. The maximum storage on these drives is around 5 terabytes, so if you need to access various old projects, you'll end up attaching a lot of different ones to your computer, and you might even run out of slots to plug them in, which is basically what happened when I edited my year 2020 video. Also, they don't offer any security in terms of hard drive damage, so if you just drop one of these and it breaks, then in most cases your data will be lost. But I'm glad that I found a way out of this misery by discovering NAS servers. So a NAS server is basically a small computer to which you can attach multiple hard drives or SSDs, and it solves all of these problems and even more. The hard drives you can buy for NAS servers come in sizes up to 18 terabytes. I have a 16 terabytes here, and they also have speeds of around 250 megabytes per second, which is already twice as much as the other ones. A NAS allows you to combine various hard drives and SSDs to something called a RAID system. Mine is running on a RAID 5 system, which means that I can completely rebuild all of the data even if one of the hard drives happens to get damaged. Having a RAID system also increases your read and write speeds, as the NAS uses multiple drives at the same time, so you can also do 4K video editing. As a NAS is a network attached storage, it is also connected to the internet, which means that you can access all of these files from anywhere in the world and also share those files with other people. So basically like your own cloud storage as well. Let's put this one back in here. I'm feeling like a salesperson, like leaning here on the product. So QNAP sent me one of their newest NAS models, which is called the TS-H973AX, and it has 5 HDD slots, 2 SATA SSD slots, and 2 U2 SSD slots. So I really think that QNAP's NAS servers are one of the best storage solutions that are currently out there, or else I wouldn't have gotten one for myself. So yeah, feel free to check out the link in the description if you want to learn more about them. So yeah, that's about it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new. Thanks again for 200,000 subscribers. I love you guys. If you don't want to miss out on any of the upcoming videos, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications. I wish all of you a great day, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Peace out.